The first thing I noticed was the silence. No call, no text, not even a little emoji in the family group chat. It was June, and for the past 15 years, that meant one thing: the annual family BBQ at Willow Creek Park. My son David always brought the grill, Emily picked out matching shirts, and I brought my famous potato salad, the one everyone said they couldn't live without. Last year, I remember Emily laughing as she told me, "You're the soul of this whole thing, Maggie." I believed her. This year, I wasn't even a whisper. At first I thought maybe they were planning a surprise. Maybe Nina, my sweet granddaughter, was working on something. But when I called her, her voice dropped. "Hi, Grandma. I don't think I'm supposed to talk about it." That sentence hit harder than any slap. "What do you mean?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. There was a pause. "I think you should ask Dad." I did. David picked up on the third ring, sounding rushed. "Hey Mom, everything okay? Is the BBQ still happening?" Silence. Then a sigh. Yeah, it is. Emily thought maybe this year we'd keep it smaller, just immediate family." Yellen. "I am immediate family," I said, barely above a whisper. He didn't answer, just cleared his throat and said, "I'll talk to you later, okay?" He hung up before I could say another word. I sat there in my kitchen, staring at the pale green bowl I always used for the potato salad. It was already out on the counter. Like muscle memory, I'd taken it down days ago, rinsed it, and left it there, waiting for an invitation that was never coming. I tried to push the thoughts away. Maybe they had their reasons. Maybe I'd been overbearing last year, asking too many questions, or showing up too early with too many Tupperware containers. Maybe Emily needed space. I told myself a dozen excuses, each more pathetic than the last. Then I got the real gut punch. I logged into Facebook that night. It was a habit, nothing serious, just a peek at the photos, some quotes about aging gracefully, maybe a recipe or two, and there it was, a public event invite labeled Family BBQ, private guest list, hosted by Emily Thompson. In the comments, Caleb, her brother, wrote, "Glad you kept it tight this year. No offense, but last time felt crowded." Emily replied, "No offense taken. Some people don't know how to step back." I stared at those words like they were acid. They burned. The worst part, Beth liked the post. My cousin Beth, the one who used to braid my hair when I was 12 and snuck me cookies at every reunion. She didn't even message me. I sat alone in my quiet kitchen, looking at a glowing screen that confirmed everything I'd feared. I wasn't just left out. I was erased, deleted from the list, like a typo. In a family story no one wanted to remember. The next day, I went to the store anyway, out of habit. I picked up the potatoes, the dill, the paprika, the green onions. Each item felt heavier than it should have, like I was carrying not just groceries, but memories, ones that no longer belonged to anyone but me. At checkout, the cashier asked, "Big dinner tonight?" I smiled through the lump in my throat. Something like that. As I walked to my car, I passed a couple, loading their trunk. The man was humming. The woman was laughing. And I was invisible. I got into my car and sat there, my hands on the wheel, my heart in my mouth. The truth settled in like fog. They didn't forget me. They chose not to invite me, and someone, somewhere in that conversation, must have said it out loud. "Don't invite her. Don't invite me." The woman who held David's head when he had chickenpox, who bought Emily her first real pearl earrings, who paid the down payment on their first house when the bank said no. I wasn't invited. Not because I'd done something unforgivable, but because I existed too loudly in a world that had decided I was no longer useful. Too nosy, too involved, too much. For what? For loving them too deeply, for showing up with casseroles when no one asked, for crying when Nina graduated high school and hugging her too long in front of her friends. Funny how the things that made me the soul of the family last year had suddenly become the reasons I wasn't allowed in the room. The morning of the BBQ arrived like any other summer Saturday. The sun was out, the sky impossibly blue, and the birds sang like they didn't know I was no longer welcome. I sat at the window in my kitchen, sipping lukewarm coffee. I hadn't slept. My eyes were heavy, but my chest was heavier. I kept staring at that same pale green bowl on the counter. It was still clean, still empty, like me. I could have stayed home. That would have been the smart thing. But something in me, something stubborn and old and aching, decided to walk. Just a little. Stroll past Willow Creek Park. Just to see. Just to feel something real. I didn't wear makeup. I didn't fix my hair. I threw on a denim jacket over my dress and grabbed my sunglasses. I told myself I was just being curious. But let's be honest, I wanted to see if I was really as invisible as they made me feel. The park looked beautiful. Tents were up. Balloons danced in the breeze. A banner hung over the main gate. Thompson Family BBQ Welcome. Welcome. That word stung like a blade. I stood across the street for a while, pretending to tie my shoe, pretending to check my phone. I could hear music playing. Already, something cheerful, something loud. And then I saw them. Emily stood in the center of it all, clipboard in hand, barking directions like she was hosting a wedding. David was near the grill, already laughing with Caleb, his brother-in-law. They looked happy, as if nothing was missing, as if I'd never existed. I took one step closer, and Emily turned. Her eyes met mine. She froze just for a second, her mouth pressed into a flat, tight smile. Then she turned back and kept talking to someone. Not a wave, not a nod. Nothing. I stood there, like a ghost watching the world it once belonged to. The music played. The kids screamed with joy. And me, I was just a shadow in their perfect sunlight. I walked away slowly, but every step felt like a hammer inside my chest. I passed families with picnic baskets, couples walking dogs, a little girl holding her father's hand. And I kept thinking, when did I stop being part of things? When did I go from, you have to come, Maggie, to don't invite her? I didn't cry. Not then, not yet. I made it back to my house, unlocked the door, and stepped into the silence that waited for me. Like an old, familiar friend, I put the jacket back on the hook. The air inside smelled like lemon cleaner and forgotten memories. I sat on the couch, curled into myself, and closed my eyes. But the sound of laughter from the park still echoed in my ears. I could hear it from my porch if I listened closely. The music, the games, the life I used to be part of. I checked my phone again. No missed calls, no texts. I tapped on the family group chat, still there, just quieter now. The last message was from Emily. Please, bring extra chairs. Looks like we might have more people than expected. More people, but not me. I stared at that message until the words blurred. My phone buzzed with a notification, and I jumped. But it was just a reminder to water the plants. Even technology knew I was alone. I stood and walked into the kitchen. My hand hovered over the green bowl. Then I opened a drawer and took out a permanent marker. Slowly, carefully, I wrote a name across the rim. Maggie. If no one else would remember me, I'd remember myself. I placed it on the center of the table, like a crown, like a flag. And then, I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened the old cabinet with the dusty photo albums, pictures from birthdays, holidays, road trips, years of laughter sealed in fading ink. I flipped through them one by one. There was David, barely 10, holding a sparkler on the 4th of July. There was Emily, young and smiling, sitting beside me with a pie I helped her bake. There was Nina, in pigtails, covered in chocolate cake. And always me in the background, holding, cleaning, clapping, cheering. Never the center. Always the support beam. No one noticed until it cracked. I sat there, surrounded by photographs and memories. And finally, let the tears fall. Not for the BBQ, but for the realization that somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being seen as a person and started being treated like a piece of furniture they forgot to dust off. And yet, deep inside the ache, something began to stir. It was small, quiet, but there, a question, a whisper. If they could erase me so easily, maybe I should vanish loud enough to haunt them. The next morning, I woke up earlier than usual. The sun hadn't even touched the windows yet. I just couldn't sleep anymore. I walked into the bathroom and stared at my reflection. For a while, I didn't recognize her. My hair was a little more silver than I remembered. My face held stories in every line. My eyes looked tired, sad, but underneath the sadness, something else flickered: disbelief. How could they pretend I didn't matter? After everything I'd done, everything I gave, was I really that easy to forget? I brushed my hair slowly, like I was trying to remind myself I was still here, still real. I changed into something simple, pale yellow with tiny buttons up the front. It used to be my favorite dress. I hadn't worn it in years. I went out to check the mailbox, needing the fresh air, maybe needing to prove to the street, to the world, that I still existed. And that's when I saw her, Mrs. Halpern. She was my neighbor for the past 20 years. a small woman with big glasses and louder opinions. She waved from her porch like she did every morning, but this time, she walked over. Morning, Maggie, she said, peeking over the hedge. Heard about the family BBQ. You okay? I didn't answer right away. I felt my cheeks burn with shame. But then I looked at her face, not pitying, not smug, just kind. I wasn't invited, I said finally. She gave a soft hum. Sometimes, honey, the ones who build the table don't get to eat at it. That sentence hung between us like a bell. I thought I mattered, I whispered. You still do, she said, but maybe not to them anymore. Doesn't mean you stop mattering. Means it's time you start mattering to yourself. She patted my arm, then walked away, like she hadn't just dropped the heaviest truth I'd heard in years. I stood on the porch long after she left, her words echoing through my chest. That start mattering to myself. What did that even look like? I'd spent so long being the backbone for other people that I forgot what it meant to stand on my own, to do something just because it made me happy, not useful, not appreciated, just happy. I went back inside, pulled out my old journal from the shelf above the laundry machine. It had dust on the cover and 2 faded pages of recipes in the front. But the rest? Blank. Waiting. I sat down and wrote the words. They forgot me. So I will remember myself. It wasn't revenge. Not exactly. It was resurrection. I made a list, not of groceries or chores, but people who'd shown me kindness, who didn't ask me to shrink. Friends, neighbors, my book club ladies, even Jeremy, my younger son, who lived in Arizona and hadn't picked sides yet. I stared at the names and thought, what if I threw my own party? Not to steal their thunder, not even to hurt them, just to take back the joy they tried to steal from me. I laughed out loud. It was small, sharp, and it surprised me. Could I do it? I walked back into the kitchen and looked at that green bowl. It was still there, and suddenly, I knew what I wanted. I didn't want an invitation. I wanted a stage, not to prove anything to them, but to remind myself that I never needed permission to celebrate. I pulled out the phone and scrolled through contacts until I found a name I hadn't dialed in years, Tom Reynolds. He used to own Willow Creek's event space before the city bought the land. He still ran bookings on the side, I remembered. I hit call. Tom, I said when he answered. Maggie. His voice brightened. Wow, it's been years. I need a favor, I said. Actually, I need a venue. Tom met me the next morning at Willow Creek's community center. He looked older, like we all did, but his smile was the same, warm and easy. Maggie, he said, holding the door open for me. You look good. Liar, I smiled, but I'll take it. We walked through the empty event hall. It was simple, folding chairs, scuffed floors, and windows that let in too much light. But in that moment, it felt like a cathedral. I heard your family's having their BBQ down at the park, he said carefully. I gave a little shrug. They were. I think they still believe they are. Tom raised an eyebrow. I want to rent this space, I said. Same day, same time. He blinked. Maggie, you're not planning to start a war, are you? I'm planning a celebration. One I wasn't invited to, but I'm not crashing theirs. I'm creating mine. He looked at me for a moment, then grinned. You always did know how to throw a better party. We sat down to go over details. I had saved enough to make it work, modest but meaningful. Tom's eyes widened when he pulled out his calendar. You won't believe this. Emily hasn't finished paying for the park space. My heart skipped. She reserved it but didn't lock it in. Technically, it's open. The room went silent. I felt my fingers curl around the edge of the table. Tom, I said, calm and certain. Book it for me. He nodded. You got it. I walked out of that meeting a different woman, lighter, fiercer. I didn't feel like a shadow anymore. I felt like the sun. I went home and pulled out a new notebook. On the first page I wrote, guest list, people who remember me. It started small, Beth, even though she'd hurt me by liking Emily's post. I decided to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she just didn't know. Then came Mrs. Halpern, my book club girls, Nina's piano teacher, my old co-workers from the pharmacy. I even left a space for Jeremy, unsure if he'd come but hoping. I bought new paper and hand-wrote the invitations. No group chats, no silent removals, just ink and honesty. At the bottom of each card, I wrote, "Join me for good food, real laughter, and the kind of family that sees you." I mailed them the next morning. It wasn't just about throwing a party. It was about reclaiming something they thought they could take from me. Joy, pride, presence. I ordered fresh flowers, booked a local jazz band, and called the bakery for red velvet cupcakes, my favorite, not theirs. Then I pulled the green bowl from the shelf. This time, I filled it. The scent of mustard egg and fresh dill wrapped around me like a memory, but instead of pain, it brought power. This potato salad wasn't going to sit in the corner of someone else's celebration. It was going to be centerpiece. I didn't know if they'd find out. I didn't care. Let Emily have her guest list. I had mine. The whispers started faster than I expected. I knew it would happen eventually. Small towns have a way of chewing secrets into loud rumors before you've even finished your morning coffee. On Tuesday morning, I got a call from an unknown number. "Mom." It was David. I paused. His voice sounded thin, like someone walking across cracked ice. "I heard you booked the part." I didn't answer right away. He sighed. "Why would you do that? Why did you uninvite me?" His silence told me everything. "I didn't know she'd do it like that," he muttered. "Emily just wanted it small this year." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the most pathetic lie I'd ever heard. "She threw the word family around like it didn't include the person who gave birth to you," I said quietly. "You let her." "It wasn't like that." "Then what was it like, David?" He didn't have an answer, just more silence. Then he mumbled, "Are you doing this to embarrass us?" I took a deep breath. "No. I'm doing this because I deserve to be seen." He hung up without saying goodbye. It didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It just confirmed I was doing the right thing. The next day, I got a voicemail from Emily. Her voice sounded like honey over glass, sweet, but sharp enough to cut. "Hi, Maggie. So, we heard about your little party. I hope you're not doing this to make some kind of point. It's really not necessary. You were invited, in spirit. We just thought, well, you'd be more comfortable sitting this one out." I deleted it without blinking. That same evening, I stood inside the rented pavilion and watched the caterers string up soft lights along the rafters. The smell of marinated ribs floated through the air. The jazz band arrived, tuning their instruments with smiles, and I stood there with my green bowl of potato salad, wearing a dress I bought for my own 70th birthday, but never had the courage to wear. It was lavender lace at the sleeves, and I looked radiant. Not for anyone else. For me. Beth was the first to arrive. She walked in holding a bouquet of sunflowers and an awkward smile. "I'm sorry," she said before anything else. "I liked that post before I even read it. I didn't realize what they'd done." I studied her face. Honest, sad, regretful. "I believe you," I said. Her shoulders relaxed. "And I'm glad you're here." One by one, more people arrived. My book club girls brought bottles of wine. Tom waved from the entrance. Even my old neighbor from 2 houses down showed up with lemon bars and hugs. No guilt. No guilt trips. Just warmth. Joy. Truth. And for the first time in years, I felt what real family felt like, chosen, not assigned. The music started, slow, soft notes from a saxophone floating through the air like silk. The park, bathed in golden light, looked like it had been waiting for me all along. Not them. Me. I stood near the entrance, watching as the first round of guests trickled in. The faces weren't glamorous. They weren't influencers or Instagrammable families. They were people who saw me, people who never made me feel like I had to earn my seat at the table. Then, I saw her small frame. Hoodie pulled over her head like she was sneaking into a movie. Nina, my granddaughter. She paused at the edge of the crowd, her eyes wide, searching. When she spotted me, she dropped the hoodie and ran straight into my arms. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I wanted to come earlier, but Mom said." "I don't care," I said, holding her tight. "You're here now." She looked up at me. "You made the potato salad." I nodded. She smiled like it was Christmas. "I missed you," she said. And just like that, every ache, every tear, every moment of erasure cracked open and let love pour back in. We sat together under the canopy. Nina beside me, laughing as she balanced a paper plate full of ribs and potato salad. She introduced herself to the older guests, offered to help the band plug in a speaker, even helped refill the lemonade table without being asked. My girl, my blood, and still mine. Then, as the sky deepened into amber and the music warmed up, I saw him, Jeremy, my younger son, the one who'd moved away years ago after too many fights with David, too many silences at the dinner table. He walked in slowly, hands shoved in his jacket, head down, but he carried something in an envelope, a card, maybe, a letter. Mama, he said softly. That was all it took. I hugged him so hard I thought we'd both break. He pulled back and smiled, eyes a little damp. Got your invite. Didn't even know about the other thing until yesterday. David, he never tells me anything unless it benefits him. You didn't have to come, I said. I did, he replied. You're the only reason any of us even know what family means. I took his hand, felt the years between us shrink like paper in rain. He handed me the envelope. Inside was a photo of me holding both boys when they were toddlers, sitting on the same picnic blanket I used this afternoon. On the back, he'd written, "You gave us everything. I'm sorry I forgot. We didn't need a speech. We didn't need to unpack years of pain in one breath." That small gesture said more than any apology could, and while the band played and Nina danced barefoot in the grass, I looked around and realized this wasn't just a backup BBQ. This was the real one, the one that mattered. It was about an hour into the BBQ when I heard the shouting. At first, I thought it was just kids playing until I caught the sharp edge of Caleb's voice cutting through the music from somewhere down the park trail. No one told me the venue was changed, he barked. We drove all the way out here for what, Emily? I stood at the edge of the lawn and watched from a distance. A small crowd had gathered at the old picnic site, near the now empty grills. Emily stood in the middle, red-faced, holding a paper plate and looking completely lost. David was pacing, gesturing wildly at his phone. Apparently, someone hadn't passed on the new location, or maybe they just didn't want to believe it. Emily turned in our direction, scanning the park, and then she saw the lights, the crowd, the laughter. She froze. For the first time in a long while, I didn't look away. David was the first to walk over. His pace was slower than usual, his shoulders hunched like he wasn't sure if he was approaching a celebration or a firing squad. He stopped a few feet away. "Hey, Mom." I didn't respond, just looked at him. He glanced around, taking in the decorated tables, the dancing children, the full trays of food. My food, I guess. "We didn't know you'd be throwing something," he said, trying to sound casual. But his eyes gave him away. "You didn't ask," I said. "But here it is." Emily followed behind him, tight-lipped and stiff. "This is really elaborate," she said. "Kind of unnecessary, don't you think?" I tilted my head, like excluding someone from their own family barbecue. Nina walked up beside me and grabbed my hand. "Hi, Mom," she said to Emily. "Grandma's party is better." Emily blinked, thrown off. "Nina, we talked about this." "No," Nina said, standing taller. "You talked. I just listened." Jeremy appeared on my other side like a silent soldier. "They're not crashing this," he said, under his breath. "I know," I replied. "They don't need to." I walked past David and Emily, toward the extra chairs no one had touched, and I let the silence settle, sweet and firm. Let them feel what I'd felt. Unwelcome. Emily stood frozen at the edge of my gathering, her eyes darting from face-to-face faces, full of joy, not judgment. Laughter rippled through the lawn. My jazz band played a soft tune that made the evening feel like honey on warm bread. And all she could do was stare. She opened her mouth once, twice, but no words came out. David fidgeted beside her, phone still clutched in his hand like it could rescue him. But no message, no post, no desperate explanation could fix what had already unraveled. I took a breath, deep and calm. Then, I stepped onto the small platform we'd set up as a stage originally for the band, but now for something else. I tapped the microphone gently. Conversations hushed. All eyes turned to me. "Thank you," I began, my voice steady. "Thank you for coming. Thank you for remembering." The words rolled out of me like water, and for once, I wasn't afraid to take up space. This wasn't a party to prove a point, it was a party to remember a point, one I forgot for far too long, that I still matter, that you don't need to be invited to your own life. I paused, letting the quiet settle like fresh snow. I spent years being the one who cooked, cleaned, arranged, held, hugged, forgave, and waited. And somehow, that made people think I'd always be in the background, that I could be skipped over, and I'd still smile. That I was furniture in their lives, always there, always quiet. I looked right at David. His eyes dropped to the ground. But I'm not furniture, I said. I'm the one who built the house. Applause began soft at first, then louder, warmer, like a blanket being wrapped around me. I raised my hand gently. And now, this table, I said, motioning to the crowd, the food, the music, this is mine, and every chair here is filled by someone who saw me, really saw me, even when others tried to blur me out. I smiled. Some people show up late. Some don't show up at all. And some think they own the party just because they wrote the first invitation. Then I looked at emilyanddavid.com/steady, but today I wrote the guest list. Nina clapped the loudest. Jeremy wiped his eye, and I closed the evening with one final truth. You taught me what family isn't, so I could finally see what family is.